Today we're recapping the latest Nintendo Switch 2 leaks, talking about newly announced Helldivers 2 movie, and discussing some shocking Call of Duty numbers. How much do those games cost to make? Stick around to find out. Welcome friends to this week's episode of Good Playing With You, the weekly gaming podcast. I'm Dan Whitehill, and as always I'm joined by my brotherly band of Matts, Matt Lord.
Hey, how's it going?
And Matt Molding.
Hey now.
We've got a lot of great stories to go over, but real quick, we need to address the fires in Los Angeles. We just want to take a moment to say that our thoughts and well wishes are with everyone impacted by the largest fire in Los Angeles history. For those of you who aren't aware, that's where the three of us are based out of. And while it's been a crazy week, we all three have been lucky enough to avoid a mandatory evacuation so far. Having to stay indoors or put a COVID mask back on when going outside to avoid the smoke and ash is nothing compared to the thousands who have lost their homes. And while it isn't quite over yet, we continue to support the brave and well-organized firefighters and first responders on the scene around the clock. But this isn't a news podcast. This is a video game podcast. And we might not be the brave or well-organized teams that the firefighters are, but we are here to provide some distractions, some fun stories, some spicy opinions, and maybe, if you're lucky, some dick jokes. So to bring it back to video games, let's talk about one of the biggest ones of them all, Call of Duty. Lord, you had the first story for us.
Absolutely crazy story, gentlemen. So Call of Duty costs are completely out of control. This comes from Forbes' Paul Tassi. Shout out to Malding.
I'm not dating him.
You just wish you were.
Yeah,
He's a handsome guy.
When I saw
mute him for a minute on my line because my Twitter because he tweets so crazy amounts, especially about Destiny 2 and how upset he is about it. I'm like, look, bro, I totally get it, but you don't need to tell me all about it. Like, tweet to them.
Yeah, he has a family. He has like a full-time job writing articles for Forbes, and he tweets all the time. I have to take a nap all like 3 times a day. I don't know.
And he lives in your head rip free.
Yeah, seriously. I was like, wow. Like, so when I saw Paul Tassi, I couldn't help. I was like, Malding all the way. So there's some other info in the article, but these are my big takeaways. These COD games came out between 2015 and 2020, and among them is the most expensive video game ever made. So coming in
until GTA 5 happens.
Oh, until GTA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, yeah,
or
exactly.
6, I mean, until GTA 6.
6, yes. So Black Ops 3, 2015, that cost $450 million.
Whew.
Modern Warfare 2019 at a whopping $640 million. And drum roll for the big hitter, Black Ops Cold War 2020, $700 million.
Wow, that is wild.
And little extra info here. All of these are over the game's life cycle, so that could include any post-launch content, but all of these are in a league of their own. As the report goes, it notes it was a big deal when it was revealed Sony spent $220 million on The Last of Us Part 2. And eyes popped when it was reported that Marvel's Spider-Man 2 cost around $300 million. That was triple the budget of the first game,
which is surprising because they could have just taken the first one and reskinned the whole thing.
Right?
That game. Yeah.
And so my question is, like, Cold War sucks ass. So what happened? Like, is this proof that money does not equal a better game? And especially in COD sense, because in my opinion, Modern Warfare 2019 was the GOAT. And yes, it costs an insane amount of money, but they nailed it there. Then they dropped Cold War and it all went bad. So what do you guys think of these numbers? Is this getting into crazy zone?
Does it happen to say how much they made? Like what their gross was in that article? Because I'd be curious if with each more expensive game, if they made more and more money, like if they were really chasing more cash, or if at any of these points they made so much money and then ended up losing versus a previous title.
That's a great call,
there, I guess.
And it probably is in there.
No, that's
But I think I just wanted to more so point out just how crazy this cost really was. And
It is
as we all know,
insane.
they make a lot of money on the return. So it is very possible they're recouping this no problem.
It is
Yeah.
insane. I know that video games make more money than movies, obviously, but when you hear about
They
movie
make more
budgets,
video games make more money than all the other entertainment properties combined. Video
I
games make
I
more
agree,
than.
but they also apparently cost way more too. Now,
Yes.
I would love to know though, the breakdown of profit, of course, but also how much of this money is, the advertising with Monster and marketing and advertisements and billboards, and because I know. That's got to be factored in here as well too. Not to say that it isn't significant, but I'm sure these numbers seem like lumped in like absolutely everything sort of costs. They and a little bit inflated to me, but I do think that these games do cost a lot. Part of it is that they seem to be, and this I could be wrong as a casual, but almost in reinventing these games almost all the time, and it's not like an Ubisoft game where it's clearly the same engine, cookie cutter, and they're just changing missions and writing. And really, I've been playing the same game for like 3 or 4 years, and I totally get it, but it's still kind of fun. But they're putting in omni movement, they're doing different things, but at the same time, on the multiplayer side of things, this has got to include all the server costs and all that sort of stuff. But they seem to be reinventing the game there too, and they're doing it in a really quick, like 3 years. I mean, that's pretty like for modern development. 3 years now is pretty fast. So maybe some of the cost is speed. I can see a lot of
Yeah.
areas that it might be. I don't know, but I do
Well,
believe the numbers.
aren't there also multiple publishers that do the Call of Duty series? So it flips back and forth between like Infinity Ward, and there are three
Treyarch.
of them:
Raven
Infinity
and
Ward,
Sledgehammer.
Treyarch.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought Treyarch was there. No,
Treyarch,
one of
yeah.
them.
And then Raven. Is it
Yeah.
Raven and Sledgehammer? Or am I tripping on Raven?
No,
Infinity
no, I think
Ward.
you're right. Raven was the support studio that might have just been promoted. I don't know, but you're right. There is support studios as well as these
Yeah.
three on the 3 year cycle.
So do you think they're just like, man, just imagine how much money they're just like forking over to all these companies that are just in there just to support. I mean, so it's crazy. Like I can't even
Wild.
imagine that amount of money.
How
So
do you like control that all and make sure that it's
right.
not bloated? And that's a
I don't know.
gargantuan.
I
No,
guess you
you
I think you
don't. A
touched on
lot of hands in those pots, taking a
Yes,
little
yeah.
bit of that
I
cash.
think I think that could
And I
be it.
think you nailed
Yeah.
it, Dan. Instead of like making it an optimized, fluid, you know, like development cycle, they just are like, let's just throw as much money into this as possible. We'll
Yes,
just throw money at it and to get it done in those 3 years. And that's just how they get through all the ups and downs.
I think you're right. Wow, a lot of crunch probably.
Expensive.
Yeah, but they must be
Expensive.
making money off of these things because they keep doing it. Speaking of things that also could potentially be expensive, on more leaks on the Nintendo Switch. Now, I know you're all thinking like, "Oh God, all we do is talk about Nintendo. This might as well be the Nintendo podcast." I can hear what you're thinking already, but it's not. I'm only bringing this up because we've had substantial. These are leaks. This is a flood. We have so much information, but there is one piece in particular that I want to pick your brains on. So I'll go through all of this real quickly. Essentially, this week has been a deluge of information coming from a number of sources when it comes to the Switch 2. First off, a new patent that was actually filed in 2023, but came July 2023, and then published for the first time last week, describes AI image upscaling technology that would help keep video game download sizes small enough to fit on the physical game cartridge while offering up to 4K textures. So definitely exciting to hear there. The SD cards that they are using in this device are XSD Express. So it's like a solid state drive, and it's able to load these games faster. So we're expecting faster load times, as well as them being able to use 256 to half gig cards. So it sounds like we might actually have to upgrade our micro SDs to use this thing, which is not so great, but who knows? Maybe it'll use the old ones too. Still a lot. Again, these are all just rumors. The motherboard photos actually leaked in this patent as well, and it had alleged specifications that mentioned 12 gigs of RAM, which the original Switch had only 4, 256 gigs of internal storage. The original Switch only had 32, which is nuts. And then there's a new C button on the right Joy-Con 2. And looking at all these specs, experts are saying, and their nerds are going back and forth fighting about whether this is as strong as a PS4 or a PS4 Pro. Consensus kind of sounds like maybe it's a PS4 handheld and a Pro in the dock. That's, anyway, it's close enough that it's pretty significantly more powerful than the original Switch. And then later, like last week, CES happened in Vegas, where everyone's showing off their latest, robots and contraptions and electronic devices. And Genkai, a peripheral manufacturer, started showing off all the peripherals they had already for Switch 2, which pretty much let the cat out of the bag in terms of form factor and how this thing is going to work. And it's so huge leaks coming from the peripheral manufacturer. Essentially, they did confirm that the Joy-Cons would be attaching to the system via magnets, so no huge surprise there. There would be a button, though, on the back that would release the Joy-Cons. And then per IGN, when they actually saw the covering plate that would go over it and protecting plate, they noticed that the Switch 2 is 10.5 inches wide, 4.5 inches tall, half an inch thick, and has an 8-inch screen compared to the current Nintendo Switch, which is only 9.5. So I guess it's an inch bigger than the last one.
Hey, an inch matters a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Half an inch taller and has a 7-inch screen. So we're definitely going up, inches here. So it's definitely, from the photos I saw, and I'll try and put one on screen here for the YouTube listeners. It looked it's exactly like the old Switch, a little bit sleeker and a little bit bigger. And the good news is the Joy-Cons looked a little bit bigger. But the one thing, gentlemen, I really want to pick your brain on, though, that I found really interesting is that we have gone back and forth over the last year talking about, okay, so what's the gimmick? How is this different? And that might have leaked too. I have no idea, though. And now what they're saying is there's an Genkai verified rumors of an optical sensor on the Joy-Con, and that essentially could mean that it's like a mouse. From people are talking about it potentially being like a Lenovo handheld that currently has the same technology in it, and it looks like them in the Lenovo example that stood on a stand, and then you moved it around, and the optical sensor was on the bottom, and it essentially was like a mouse. And so the thought is you detach these things, you set it down, and you're able to use that optical sensor as an input device. So is that the big secret that Nintendo's been hiding? And is that their big gimmick for this new console? I guess we'll have to wait to find out. But is that something that interests you guys? What do you think?
I love that. I'm into it. It sounds like they're trying to take almost a little more of a Steam Deck approach, which in my mind, it's always going to come back to, is this thing going to be as good as the Steam Deck? Will I need to will I be hankering to upgrade to the Switch 2 because I have a Steam Deck? That's always going to be my thought. But I do like the idea of a very precise mouse-esque peripheral. Like, I think that's a good idea, since I feel like right now the market is drifting very much towards like a PC sort of landscape. Sorry, all the everyone out there on console, but I feel like that's sort of the way it's going. And so I think it'd be a smart thing to have like because all I'm thinking of is like, can I play a good strategy game on this thing? And if they have that, sweet. That's like, count me in. What do you think, Malding?
I think that I don't play on my Switch using the Joy-Con controllers, so it's gotta, if this is going to be part of a pro controller, of a controller, I'd like to know how that works, because if it's just that we using the Joy-Cons with it, I don't use the Joy-Cons. They're too small for my giant man hands. Well, maybe they're bigger now. Like we said, an inch matters a lot. So maybe they're bigger now and I can use it. But that that's not the killer app that I was hoping for. And then also, listen, if this is the same level of technology as a PS4, then I don't care what it looks like. It's the games. Like if they have games like Tears of the Kingdom, which I talk about a lot, that I absolutely adore, that do these innovative things, then I'm in. I don't really care about the Switch 2 until I see what games they have coming out with it.
I agree, but it needs some sort of wow factor, because even
It does, absolutely.
the Wii U had some pretty good games. I enjoyed it, but I was the only one. And so this thing to move units has got to do something different. As like a couch commander, I am not big on these on a mouse sort of controller, because I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to use it in front of my TV, especially with the system docked. I guess they'll have to answer that question. So I'm not really excited about this.
And how
Until I
would you use
see
it handheld? Like if they're on the bottom, then do you flip the thing up and move the how does it work? I will be very curious, and then that would help me out once I know that.
Get ready for some like wild lap third party accessories so you can use it like while you're sitting down on the couch. And I don't know, I'm just getting like flight stick vibes from that. You're like putting it down and doing all the motion. It's just, I mean, I could see it, but I'm totally with you, Malding. If it's going to be just PS4 level, I'm going to need like a game to really hook me in. Like Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild. I mean, I really like a solid, Mario Odyssey 2 could do the trick, but it's gonna
they're
be
gonna have Prime and they're gonna have Odyssey 2, guaranteed. Calling it now.
Yeah, that's
But
So I guess,
Metroid could do it.
Yeah, agreed. Metroid could do it. So hopefully, actually, you know what? I think that could be cool if you do like a little mouse thing with Prime. I could see that being actually a pretty good way to sell that little feature.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
I don't know. Not until I see it. Can't make any judgments, but it doesn't sound very exciting to me. But we'll see. I've been wrong before many times.
Well, speaking of companies that have taken risks on hardware that haven't always paid off, Malding, you had a story about the Xbox for us.
Yeah, man, the Xbox. So this is from John Walker at Kotaku, and it is about Black Myth Wukong. So Black Myth Wukong devs say the Xbox Series S is the cause of their release woes. Microsoft previously implied it was an exclusivity deal, but Game Science's CEO says otherwise. Available on PC and PlayStation 5 for the last 4.5 months, 2024 smash hit Black Myth Wukong is still conspicuously absent on Microsoft's consoles. Exactly why has been a matter of some speculation, with the Xbox makers previously suggesting it's nothing to do with its tech. However, now the Game Science CEO, Fang Ji, hopefully I pronounced that right, has posted to Chinese social media platform Weibo to say it's absolutely because of that, and specifically the lack of it is in the Xbox Series S. While celebrating all of the game's successes in 2024, Xi explains via machine translation, the only thing missing is the Xbox. He reveals that it's the 10 gigabyte shared memory that's the issue, which, as Games Radar points out, is much lower than the X's 16 gigabyte. Xi continues, it's really impossible to get it without several years of optimization experience. In November, CEO of gaming Phil Spencer was extremely cagey about whether Wukong would be appearing on Xbox. This followed leaks and rumors in August about the game supposedly failing Xbox bug detection tests, while insiders told IGN that it was instead due to an unannounced exclusivity deal between Game Science and Sony. This was also tacitly suggested by Microsoft itself when asked about the lack of the game on its console, responding, "We're excited for the launch of Black Myth Wukong on Xbox Series X and S and are working with Game Science to bring the game to our platforms. We can't comment on the deals made by our partners with other platform holders, but we remain focused on making Xbox the best platform for gamers, and great games are at the center of that." Blah, 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 marketing speak. Yeah. And yet, this all followed Game Science's July explanation for the delay on Xbox, which stated, "We are currently optimizing optimizing the Xbox Series X and S version to meet our quality standards so it won't release simultaneously with other platforms. We will announce the release date as soon as it meets our quality standards. So to me, this is just another case of, man, Xbox making just a huge fumble splitting off the Xbox Series X and S and having those two systems, and then having this requirement that you have to be able to play on one and the other at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of agree, but at the same time, we can't keep blaming the Series S. Like, look at right over my shoulder. We got Death Stranding, no problem playing on the Series S and looking great while doing it. So, in my opinion, at this point, we need to start optimizing these games correctly. And I think if they're optimized right, you should have no problem working around these next generation consoles with their hardware. And I think we just need to go back to the idea of these devs need to like really figure out how they can optimize their game in the best way and then make it work for the hardware, not the other way around.
I disagree. I think, you know what, Microsoft should have released a next gen console. They didn't. They failed to do so. Yes, it's got beefier specs and it does things in HD and not 4K, trying to get around some of the limitations. But this thing, let's be honest, it's an albatross. It's a PR disaster. It has not paid off, and they're still in last place. So look, they took a risk. It didn't pay off, and now they're suffering the consequences in the news cycle repeatedly with game after game after game and developer after developer talking smack about this third place console because they did something that just was so left field and didn't work. The sales aren't there. The games aren't there. They've effed themselves on this one. They need to take the L, and then next time, let's see a real console for the next gen.
One thing that's very interesting is that this parity requirement that they have for the X and the S, they suspended that parity requirement for one game in particular. Do you two know which game it is?
Baldur's Gate 3.
It was Baldur's Gate 3. They couldn't Larian couldn't get the multiplayer to work on the Xbox Series S. So the Xbox allowed them to go through with it without the parity. So
interesting. I didn't even know I didn't realize they had such a thing in place.
Yeah.
Interesting. So,
and I think we're going to see more of these problems coming towards the tail end of the generations, with games getting bigger and more ambitious, and this box trying to hold back the industry. But then Microsoft's no stranger to making allowances. The same could have been said back in the day as far as like the 360, when we initially had to install that on a hard drive for PlayStation. I mean, for the GTA 4, was it? I think it had to be installed. No, it's 5. 5 had to be installed on a hard drive, and that was the first time they had ever allowed a game to do that. And that was at the very tail end of that generation, and that's why. So I think we're going to see them make some more allowances as we get closer to the end of the generation, and hope that nobody notices. Like
I'm going to be out here just defending the poor Series S. Like, it's
just poor man's Xbox.
Yeah, like it doesn't deserve it. It doesn't deserve it. Like, I just think, man, there's so many great games already running on the system that it's just, when you hear it, you're like, come on, like, can't we just figure it out, please, devs? Like, come on.
Here's one thing that also puts the lie to all this Microsoft's marketing speak is they're always like, your games, play them anywhere. Except you can't play them on some of their systems because you have to have that parity. So it's really interesting that they love that. Like, your games, you can play anywhere. And it's like, nope, not Wukong, you can't.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the Series S isn't even considered an Xbox anymore. You might as well play on your Android phone.
It's true.
Right? Oh, it's true. But yes, I thought that was an interesting story.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. And I don't think that's the last we're going to hear about devs, harping on this console as we get to the end of the generation. But speaking of devs that are actually happy and doing nice things, Lord, you had a great story about Stellar Blade.
Yeah, so this is a really cool story amongst all the hardship that the industry is going through right now. Stellar Blade developer ShiftUp is seriously rewarding their employees. This comes from VG247's Usin Kunani. Is that right? I think Kunki. Sorry if I butchered the name.
Sorry, Kunki.
Kunki. I missed a K in there. A Shift Up representative recently spoke with South Korean outlet Naver, where it was shared that all of the roughly 300 employees at the studio had been gifted a PS5 Pro, and that they'll also be getting a bonus of 5 million won, which is around $3,400.
Oh,
According to the
nice.
representative,
That's
the
how you do it.
intention, yeah, I know. According to the representative, the intention behind the bonuses was to encourage existing talent at the company. Considering how many layoffs took place this year, it's estimated to be more than 14,000. To hear that a company actually wants to retain and even reward its staff is encouraging. And I gotta just say, that's pretty great. I love to hear the reward over punishment sort of mentality. So when you see this, it gives me hope. It's a little ray of hope for the industry, or hoping that this is something that can spread to other devs. And because at the time, like, Stellar Blade really dropped, it didn't sell a bunch. It's been selling better now, but it's great to see that even if it had a little rocky start, they didn't just lay off the entire group. They made it work. They retained their talent, and they gave them a bonus and a PS5 Pro. What do you guys think about this?
I don't mean to
Yeah,
be a Debbie Downer, but is this
do
a
it.
Band-Aid? Like, Stellar Blade apparently, by all accounts, is a great game, and I've heard really great things about
Mhm.
it. But as you said, it didn't sell very well, and the whole story sounded great until you reminded everyone about all the layoffs that they had. And so, are they only giving these people the bonus and the PlayStation 5 so that they're like trying to get on their good side again? Because they're like, oh, we got rid of all the talent we don't need. Now this is the core we need. So we got to kiss up to them a little bit. Is this just a little bit of too little too late, trying to make good with the talent they don't want to run out after they've treated everyone like crap?
Well, it's
Well,
better
I
than
think,
zero.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think if they were, I think that was the 14,000 was like the entire staff, not their staff in particular. Or did you know that?
No, I thought you were just talking about like the layoffs.
Their
And this is like the money they saved from the layoffs, and then
Oh,
they were
no.
okay.
14,000 I think was the entire whole of how many layoffs in general along the industry
Oh,
from
got it. Okay, then
yes,
my
yes.
mistake. I thought that was
No. But I mean, still, like, I agreed. There could have been other, hard, crazy stuff going on in their dev world, but this one,
my bad. Walk that
no,
one back.
agreed. I mean, hopefully,
We'll fix it in post.
Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Edit,
It's one
snip.
of those things that it's just crazy. I mean, and it's just funny because it's such a controversial game, Stellar Blade 2. You got this half naked chick with a sword running around, and then their devs, they're handing off a nice little reward to their employees. I just thought that was an interesting little juxtaposition as well. So hey, we got some good stuff. What do you think, Malding? How does
I
this
mean,
make you feel?
relatively. So, I mean, Stellar Blade is a relatively small game. It's right, and it's from a small
Right.
studio. So, what I'd like to see, what would really make news, is Activision Blizzard taking some of their 650 million, adding another 10 million. No one really notices between 650 million, 660 million, and giving bonuses there. That's what I'd like to see, and maybe they do, and we just don't hear about it, but that would be real big news. These little guys, they seem to be way better to their employees than the bigger guys seem to be. So
Yeah,
that's what I'd like to see.
you're right. Like a Blizzard doing something like this. Yes, please.
That's a great
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Thank you. I make a lot of good points.
All right. Well, I want to know what you think now about Horizon Zero Dawn and Helldivers being turned into movies. It's not a huge lot of information on this one. It was announced this week at CES, but essentially Sony has said, okay, we're putting the green light on these two properties, and they're the next up to get the Uncharted treatment. What do you guys think? And what do you want to see out of these? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sold, but I want to hear what you guys have to say.
I think Horizon Zero Dawn would make a fantastic movie. I love those games. I know you don't, Dan, because you have bad taste, but I do love them. I have good taste, and I think they're great games. But Helldivers was a movie. We've already seen that movie, and it was Starship Troopers. And so I don't know about that one. That's the one I'm a little hesitant on. But yes, I would love, I think seeing those big robotic dinosaurs on the big screen fighting with a bow and arrow, it would be just, that would be so awesome. And it really is a fantastic story too. If you complete it, it's really, really interesting who Aloy is, and her relationship with the world is really, really fascinating. And I think it would make a really good like cliffhanger if they make 2 movies out of it. So yes, I'm all about that.
Yeah,
nice, Lord.
Just between the 2 of them, which one is making me more excited? Definitely Horizon. To be honest, like I'm more excited for a Horizon movie than I would for a Helldivers, because I 100% agree with you, Malding. Why? Yeah. How can you? First of all, how can you top Starship Troopers? Because I thought the game was like a complete rip from Starship. So it's like you can't really. I don't even know where they can go from there. That's really where. So I think there's much more room to be creative, to make really cool. I'm expecting like epic Jurassic Park moments with humongous, robot dinosaurs. And that is what I'm looking for in that type of movie.
I mean, just a 15-minute scene of her climbing up one of the tall necks for the first time would be so cool. Like she slips a little and throws her harpoon thing up and climbs up. Like it would be so exciting to watch.
I would tune in for that for sure. And it's just funny because like I'm sort of with Dan on this one as far as like the game goes, because I'm not like a humongous Horizon. Yeah, we just have poor taste over here, Dan and I. And so, but hey, for a movie, I think I will be tuning in, and more so for the Horizon look.
Oh, you guys could not be more wrong. What are you thinking? Okay, you've almost sold me though on the Horizon thing. Even though yes, the games are so clunky and
not
boring,
at
and
all.
they're the
Fluid,
same thing over
wonderful.
and over.
It's like playing in water. It's so
some
good.
Clunk, some major clunk.
Major clunk. I do think you're right. It could translate well. I think it just makes me a bit nervous because if you think about it, if they get a Paul Anderson or whatever who did all of the Resident Evil ones, yeah, he did Monster Hunter. Let's not forget here, people, and all that's not the best game, and I know you love it. Molding that game was not. I mean, that movie was not very good, and so I'm thinking, oh crap, if they go that direction with a low budget and a low budget director, then this has no hope. But then I'm like, okay, if they do AAA, it's going to be like Uncharted. And let's be honest, Uncharted, while Tom Holland is great, it was truly uninspired. It literally was ripped from the game, and they did nothing, and they brought nothing, and it was a kind of a snooze fest if you played the game, and it didn't do the game's justice. And that's what this thing has to do. It has to tell Aloy's story in an interesting, understandable way, and it has to be, visually a feast. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, I think Helldivers has much more opportunity. I love, of course, Starship Troopers. I remember seeing it in the theater back in the day when I was a young pup, and I thought it was fantastic. And there hasn't been another movie quite like that. I think the potential here is much greater. And the reason being, they don't have any sort of like major narrative that they have to stick to. They can actually tell a story. Now, you got to get the right directors on both of these, and you got to get the right script directors because they've got to have really clever shots and really great violence and stuff like that. But then I'm thinking, well, they're probably not going to want to go too hard on these things. They could just end up fluffy, and cash-ins. And so it makes me a bit concerned. But I do think with Helldivers, you could tell some really unique, buddy war stories in a post-apocalyptic sort of future that could be really badass and lots of explosions. And so for me, CG dinosaurs, I don't know. And then
CG
violence,
robot dinosaurs.
Yeah, okay, CG robot dinosaurs. I don't know, like that's gonna be bad CG. But then I get extreme violence and Terminators and explosions and brotasticness. I'm going brotastic all the way.
False. Dan, you made some good points there because one, you're right. They can totally botch the CGI for Horizon, which is like, now that I think about that, holy smokes, they have to lock that in. And then I really did like your point about how Helldivers doesn't have that really strong story built in, so they can, they could massage a really good story from that. I think that's a really, really good
And
point
they've
that I
got to
hadn't considered.
play with the stratagems and have them super violent and super cool and like
Yeah.
bring in all the different weapons and so many different kinds of explosions and then the big bugs. And oh man, I'm so pumped for Helldivers.
No, it's
I
a
can't wait.
good point. Malding is making a solid case over here.
I love Lord because he just agrees with the last person who spoke.
It is a good quality in a friend, yes.
Yeah. I just like, once I hear those points, I can't help. I'm like, you know what? I'm getting swayed. I'm easily swayed. I'm like, oh wow, these guys are good.
A tug of war over Lord's soul.
I know. Well, one thing I know that Lord is really excited about is Half-Life 3. And although Malding's been teasing him for years that this thing's actually could be coming, we got a little tease for real there. Lord, you had this story.
Yeah, this is awesome. So this is coming from GameSpot, Blair Marnell. He has a little tidbit that we're all grasping onto about Half-Life 3. So actor Mike Shapiro, who voices the character G-Man in the Half-Life game, he shared this very cryptic New Year's message on X. And he basically, we don't have it to play right now, but he's basically saying there's more to come in 2025 in his very unique voice of his. And I gotta say, it had me pumped up. I wasn't so sure, but there's no way. I mean, there's a possibility that they are teasing something along the lines of like a Half-Life Alyx 2, which is their VR game, something along those. But I don't know. This seems it has a little bit more to it that makes me want to believe that Half-Life 3 will be announced in 2025. I mean, we got to hold on to something. So please let it be true. What do you guys think? Am I just wigging myself out over this, or
I think
is there something?
Call me when Team Fortress 3 comes out with it. Then I'll be interested. Give me that orange box too.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Well said.
I know. I think you might be getting a little excited because this could be a comic book. This could be a Netflix series.
Yeah.
This could be almost anything with the See You in 2025.
Mobile game.
Yeah, it could be. But it's nice to see that Valve's actually still playing in this universe. I don't know that this series has that cachet that it had back in the day, but I'd love to see them bring it back. You know what I mean?
I would hope so. Like I think like Half-Life 3 would really have that Elden Ring moment to it where everyone would just be flooding to this single player game and talking about the single player game. Because I think Half-Life 2 had that same sort of just aura about it back in the day, like practically early internet baby days. So this game would be something that it would be on the tip of everyone's tongues.
Okay, everyone.
Everyone. I'm telling you guys.
It'll be on the tip of our tongues because we'll be continually saying, Lord, quit talking about Half-Life 3.
No, you would. I'd be out here really. Forget Death Stranding. That's going in the garbage. We're talking Half-Life 3 now.
Well, I do want this to happen, if only for you, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. To wrap up the news headlines of the week, Malding, you had a really positive story for us.
Yeah, I love these positive stories. And then, I mean, this one's a little subject to controversy, possibly. But this is from David Neild at sciencealert.com, a website that I do not frequent. Open world games like Zelda can boost your mental health, study says. Many modern video games fall into the open world category, giving players vast, detailed worlds to explore. And a new study published in the Journal of Medical Internet Research, very high-profile research institute, shows these expansive digital playgrounds have benefits for our mental health. Researchers from Imperial College London and the University of Graz in Austria asked more than 600 postgraduate students about their experiences playing open world games and how these sessions left them feeling. They found these video games, including The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, significantly boost cognitive escapism, taking breaks from thinking about real life, relaxation levels, and overall mental well being. It's evidence that these types of games could be an antidote to other digital activities we engage in, such as scrolling through social media, something that's been associated with a downturn in mental health. Quote, by providing immersive environments that allow mental diversion, emotional relief, and meaning, these games can serve as valuable tools for enhancing psychological and emotional health, write the researchers. Based on a total of 32 interviews and 609 surveys, participants expressed feelings of increased inner peace, as well as being able to forget my daily worries and switch off from whatever else is happening. One participant described open world gaming as my form of meditation. There were mentions of calmness, relaxation, and satisfaction in the volunteer responses, as well as talk of relieving stresses and soothing tension. Some players said they felt a sense of calling in the game and sense of calling in the game and of growing as a person. It seems that both the autonomy given to players in open world games and the richness of the virtual worlds may contribute to improvements in mental health, something game developers could take on board. Now, what I thought was especially interesting in this is exactly what I told my therapist, that video games are a form of meditation, to which she said that's probably not a good thing. That is called disassociating, and it's probably not the best thing for me. But that is always what I've said, is that when I play video games, like the world shuts out. I shut out the world and I'm just focused on that, and I do feel stress relief from it. So I was happy to see that this was the case, though my therapist probably would not say the same thing.
Well, you can't spell meditation without dissociation, is what they say.
Is that what they say? Yeah, I think yeah, sure, that adds up. Absolutely.
I mean, like I totally agree. You get a good open world game. When I played Breath of the Wild, I think I was in like the most like correct headspace of my life. Breath of the Wild was just such a good, just feel good game. Like even when there was intense parts, I felt totally at ease, just cruising through that world. So many good moments in that game. It was really like a digital antidepressant, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I totally agree. I think I feel all that sort of. I almost think almost everything in moderation, right? You like, this is good for your brain, but you got to go outside and exercise sometime too. And although we focus more on video games here, I think that they do have positive benefits, and it's nice now because we always grew up with such bad stories about video games. It's nice now that people have actually played video games and understand video games, are able to explain their experience with it that aren't what we were told growing up all the time about how lazy we would become and how it rot our brain. And I love hearing this sort of change by a more mature audience. So it's nice.
I think one thing specialty to note in that is that difference between, like, if I'm going to be playing a video game or doom scrolling on Twitter, playing a video game is going to make me feel a lot better and happier than, checking on to see if I get evacuated, which, maybe I should check to see if I get evacuated, but the feelings there.
You repeatedly, like, come over to my house, come over to my house.
I know. I was very close to being evacuated last night.
And you should have come over to my house.
Yeah, I should. It's fine.
It's fine. Yeah.
But yeah, so I do think of those two activities that I do both of them. I doom scroll on Twitter and I play video games. Playing video games is by far the healthier option of those two.
I just think it's really funny that they specify open world games and they don't specify those taxing online games like Call of Duty or like Dead by Daylight where you get murdered and angry.
That's true. Or Overwatch when your team doesn't play tank.
Yeah. They're very specific when they say these open world. Oh, okay. So they're not talking about the online gaming where I get called
That's
an a-hole all the time.
They're not talking. in there was no mention of Soulsborne games at
Yeah,
all. Elden Ring not showing up in that thing.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't even count. They're like all open world games besides Elden Ring,
But
and you're
Elden
good.
Ring, exactly.
All right, moving on. Let's get to the listener topic and emails of the week. All right, first up, this is a question I had, although you're welcome to write into us and ask questions anytime at goodplayingwithyou@gmail.com. But this week, I kind of thought about all of the games we've been talking about at ending 2024 and some of my favorites and some of my experiences. But then I was thinking about some of the surprises I had, and I was wondering, have you guys ever replayed a favorite game or a remake and it just doesn't hit as hard? Like it's not the way you remember it, and it's maybe the control scheme, maybe it's the graphics, maybe it's the voices, but it's like, wow, I really helped put this on a pedestal, and it's not as great as I thought. Unfortunately for me, I had kind of that experience this past year on a couple of games, and I wanted to ask you guys if you had that experience too.
Oh yeah, this is a great question, and I can kick us off if you want. I have one that
Please.
is very on top of mind because they just released The Thing remastered, and I picked that up because I adored that game on the PS2. I've talked about it on the podcast before. I used to sit my mom down and she would watch it with me because I was too scared, and I had so many good memories of that game. And I fired it up and I was just like, what happened? Like, this is not, the controls are not like very intuitive. The puzzles are running back and forth. The shooting is very static. And I was just like, I must have really, I had a completely different idea when I was a youngster what this game was. And now that I'm a little bit of a veteran out there, this game really, like, I'll probably just put it away and try to retain the fun memories I had of it while I was young. So I totally got you there. On the flip side, though, one that I wanted to say that is holding up really, really well that I've been playing a little bit is Red Dead Redemption 1, that remastered on the
Love that
Steam
one.
Deck.
Good
It's
to hear.
so good. So I had to throw that in there.
No,
That was
that's good to
mine.
hear.
Good.
Nice.
Lord, I can tell you the answer to that question of why you don't feel the same way. It's because your mom's not sitting behind you when you played it. I think that was all about your mom and not about the game.
Okay,
That's
you're
so
getting
true.
way into therapist speak for us. Let's take it back to just shallow video games, bro.
Come on, that was a great
need it. No,
observation. I think
that's
I nailed
good.
it.
Oh, yes,
Totally.
Freud. Yes,
I
Freud.
know. We do need our moms hanging out with us while we're gaming at all times. And that's just a prerequisite that I have.
As someone who played a lot with his mother playing with his mom watching behind me, yes, I totally agree. It was a lot
Thank
of
you,
fun.
Malding.
Mine, I love Hitman World of Assassination. Talked about it a lot on the pod before. It's an incredible game. And so I played through that and I was like, oh, Hitman Blood Money is on sale. I'm going to buy that one and replay that one because I love more Hitman. Bought it, went back and played it, and wow, it just did not hit like it did that first time. And it's, to me, the obvious reason is it's graphics for me. Going from beautiful, well constructed graphics to not so good but well constructed graphics, that going backwards is always really, really difficult. It's why it's sometimes hard for me to play old Final Fantasy games, even though I love them so much, is that graphics difference is hard for me to really enjoy. But that game, still fun. You're still doing a lot of the same things, but slower, didn't look as good. All that stuff really piled on to being like, oh man, what a bummer. Hitman Blood Money was such a great game, and now it just doesn't hit the same as it did back then.
That's a shame. Love Blood Money on the 360.
Yeah.
Yep.
I also loved what Lord did, where he said, okay, now he flipped it and he was like, okay, this is one that I replayed that actually was really good and it was a good surprise. So I know that, just to ask you off the cuff, can you think of anything you've played recently that you're like, damn, that still holds up?
I mean, I talk about it all the time, but Skyrim holds up incredibly well. So
that's a great pick.
I mean,
They
that
call it.
game is a perennial game. You can play that anytime. No, let me noodle that one a little
All right.
bit while let me ignore you while you give your thing. I'll noodle it and then
Don't
we'll
worry,
see
I do
what'll
that
come
all the
up with.
time to you, so it's only fair. Well, and we're not being rude, but the answers are in our document that we've all talking about, so we know what the person's going to say. But anyway, so I played a couple this year that kind of surprised me that didn't hold up as I had really hoped. I played through Far Cry Blood Dragon, which honestly, the voice acting that was Michael Biehn from the Terminator movies. They casted him, and I was like,
not
"Oh my
Mr.
god!"
Bean. I wish it would
Yeah,
have been Mr.
no,
Bean.
exactly. That would
Oh,
be a way different game. But the gameplay and the graphics just didn't hold up, and it was too small. Surprisingly enough, um, Dead Rising, I mean, as much as I did the review on it, I had a good time. But even in that review, I said, out of the series, this is the weakest one. It had the least amount of features. And while it looked beautiful, and I had a great time playing it because, hey, zombies. So you can't go wrong there. You've already got me. I've already had it
that
with
one's gone
zombies.
through multiple remakes too, hasn't it? At least 2? Or
Yeah,
is that the only
no, you're right.
remake?
It's had some remasters or
Yeah.
whatever, but this was the actual full ground up remake
Yeah.
of the very first game. But that's not the strongest one in the series, so I'm like, okay, let's give that one a rest. And then most recently, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this one, Lord, but Silent Hill 2. I'm surprised by like how much I worshiped this game. And then, I'm halfway through it. I'm still stuck in the apartment complex, but it's almost like they've added more to this game to pad it out, and what they've added is just too much fluff for me, and I just want to get more back to the story. And I haven't been able to get out of that apartment building yet, but I'm at the very end of it. It's just it's just not, I mean, I like it, but it's just not the same.
That
Lord,
makes me nervous, I gotta say, because I'm just kicking off the apartment building, and I just if it's dragging on, makes me super nervous. I could see it. I don't think people have talked about just the criticisms of that game at all, because you only hear praise. So
I know, that's why I was
I don't know.
surprised. I was like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah, no, I mean, it just
Oh,
could
do you
be
want me
like,
to I have a
I
list
knew
going.
you were
Do you
going
want
to
me to
show. I
read
was
it
like,
off?
oh shit, I left myself over that one. Oh shit. And then on the flip side, I'm sure there's a lot of games, but I didn't really think about it until Lord pointed out his more positive spin on the take and the topic. But the one I'm playing right now, doggy, is fantastic. I don't know if either of you gents have played Cult of the Lamb. Have you touched it at all?
No,
Oh,
hear
not
about
yet.
it a lot.
it is the definition of a good indie game. If you like the formula of Moonlighter, where you go in the dungeons during the night and then you come sell the stuff during the day, it's just, oh man, that game is fantastic. And Cult of the Lamb is very dark sense of humor the same way. And what's fantastic about this game is solid premise, great gameplay from the beginning. And that was launched 2020 or 2021. Since
Wow.
then, they've added so much to the game and all of this content to it. And I'm replaying through it now, and I'm like, damn, I'm having just as good time, if not more, by the content that they've added that's surprising me. And they've added a lot of depth. So do not sleep on Cult of the Lamb. It is a fantastic game, and I'm enjoying the hell out of it. So
That's
really,
awesome. I'll take
We'll
a
add
look
it
at
to
that
the
one.
list.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
got
I
a
do
really
know
dark sense of humor.
I do know the one that still hits well, and Dan saw me playing it a couple weeks ago, and that is oh my gosh, why am I blanking on what it is? Far Cry 3. I went back and played that one again, and I didn't get too far in this most recent playthrough, but graphics still, not the best considering how Far Cry looks now, but gameplay way superior to the newer Far Cries. That story of you being that like doofus frat boy who then becomes like a savior and becomes like a really yeah, okay. And then becomes like, the savior of all his friends. Like that story is the best of the Far Cry games, but hands
Nice.
down. So that's a good example of a game that I
As
went
much
back
as
and
it
played.
pains me, I 100% have to agree with you, because this Far Cry, the next gen remake version, was an actual, like, I didn't even buy it. Like, it was an add-on on some.
It came for free.
Far
Yeah,
Cry.
when you
Yeah, it
bought
came for
one of them, you got
6, I
that one
think.
for free. Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw you playing it, so then I totally jumped in too, and I started
Oh,
playing
you
it. And
did? Oh.
yeah, I enjoyed the shit out of it. It was so good. My only complaint would be the frame rate's a little bit slow, so your eyes are.
Yeah,
And
it's a
I'm
little
being spoiled.
yeah.
But you are right. Like the gameplay, moment to moment, is even better than the other franchise. The story's better than all of them. The characters are better than all of them. It's so relatable. Maybe because of the d-bag protagonist, I'm like, that's me. It's just really, it is definitely the best one of them, I think. So good call on that one.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, we're
Add
running
him to
out of
list.
time.
Yep.
Yeah, running out of time. But real quickly, I want to talk about our last topic, and that is a genius game feature that got trapped inside a good or bad game that isn't the Nemesis system. So what's something that's really unique that you're like, oh man, this is awesome. I can't wait to, see where it goes, or if other games pick this up, and you really enjoyed playing it, only to find out that it was never used ever again, and you were left heartbroken with that good memory. What's
Yeah.
something that you
I
guys
mean,
like?
I think I have the answer for this. I don't know that any of you can top this one. And that is Eternal Darkness's sanity system from the GameCube, where you would get
So good.
progressively more insane while you play, and then the game would start messing with you so much so that it would do things like create fuzz on your television that look like of fuzz that your TV would normally do. So you think that your TV turned off, and no, it's just the game and you're going crazy. Like, there were so many of these things that they had, and I haven't seen that in any other game. Come to find out, Nintendo had it patented or copyrighted
Oh,
or
really?
something for, and then I don't think they ever used it again.
Oh, they had
That's a
such a
shame.
good one in the middle of the game. Said pause, and then it clicks down and it says save game or whatever, and it comes up and it's like delete game, and it says yes, and then it does this like it deletes your game or whatever, and you're like, what? And then it goes back to and they're like, oh, I was just insane, and I was like, oh man, they're totally effed with you. It was so good.
Oh, that's a
That
good
is
one,
quality
Molly.
trolling in a video game, which I
Yeah,
really, really respond to.
yeah,
No,
that's what I'm saying.
great pick. Great pick. Did you want to do Did you want to
Oh
do
yeah, and my other
Yeah.
one is not that. I mean, it's not that special. It's just I remember playing in Fallout 4, and possibly this was in other games before Fallout 4, but they had this automated system in your camps that built ammo for you and built guns for you and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure that's been in other things, but Fallout 4 is where I first experienced it, and man, I loved it so much. And since then, it's kind of in Pal World, they kind of do it where your gut pals are creating this stuff for you, but you have to go to the place and activate it, whereas Fallout 4, it just was all automated. And I think that's way fun, and I would like to see more games do some sort of automated crafting.
Nice.
Good picks.
Cult of the Lamb does it, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, it does? Oh,
Oh,
I'm totally going to pick that up then. That sounds like way fun.
But it does like automatic crafting of food and other things like that, not weapons.
Yeah, that's still something.
It is.
Yeah.
You'll love it.
Oh,
Anyway.
man.
Sorry, Lord.
Well, I'll just run through mine real quick. First of all, this is what kind of tipped me off. I just feel like that glue mechanic in Tears of the Kingdom is
so good.
It's such a good mechanic. Yeah, it was just like an infinite world of possibilities, and I just don't think we're gonna see. Like, I'm just like, that is gonna be in Tears of the Kingdom. We're probably not gonna see that one again, and that's wild. And I mean, like, that's what I said. I like good or bad game, and that game is so good. So I had to.
So
and then
good.
of course,
Sure.
one thing that this is just throwing it way back: the destruction mechanic in Red Faction, where you could just like shoot your way through the ground or the walls, and there's so much destructibility in that game. I feel like games have lost destructibility altogether. I'm hoping that's something GTA 6 changes, and there's some good destructibility in that game. I think that's a pipe dream.
Yeah.
It's something where Battlefield is superior to Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Is those
Yes.
environmental destructions.
Thinking of that skyscraper that falls in Battlefield is so iconic.
That would probably be because you could kind of like shoot through, like you can break down walls and stuff, and that's sort of what I'm hoping for. Like, I loved that Red Faction setup, which was just so cool. I miss just Red Faction in general, just as a side note. The next one, Grav Gun in Half-Life 2. What a fantastic, fun gun. And then finally, the Strand system that is in Death Stranding, where it's sort of like a social media inside the game. It is just so much fun. I love like that little dopamine kick when you're getting thumbs ups on certain structures that you build in the world. I love that. Those are going to be my quick 4. I know I got a few in there, but Dan,
those
what
are
about
great.
you? Thanks.
No, those are great. And I feel so much more relieved knowing that everything's good and right in the world and back to normal, because we can't go a podcast without you mentioning Death Stranding. And I was getting a little nervous because we were getting to the end. And then I was like, there it is. He mentioned that game. So everything is good and right. For me, I thought the rewind feature from Sands of Time, like as a platform lover, I love to be able to try different jumps and see, can I make it? Can I, or you're not paying close enough attention and, or something happens. And this feature was really cool because you were able to then just hold down a button and it would actually rewind it. Now, yes, of course, if you fall off a cliff, it's probably just faster to reload, although some games don't reload. This one, you got a really cool animation, and it was limited. Like you could only, at first you only got 1 sand of time, and then it was 2 and 3 and that sort of stuff. And so you felt there was a sense of progression with this, and then you could actually do some really cool things. And that's why, I mean, we've been waiting for this Sands of Time remake, and they showed an awful trailer that was so bad that they had to get rid of the game and scrap it and start all over. So I don't even know if we're ever going to see Sands of Time again. And then they did that 2D one, but it's not the same. We need Sands of Time, and we need this mechanic to come back. I thought it was great. And then the other one that I thought was kind of interesting was Red Dead Redemption 2. Yes, I give this game a lot of guff, but it was one of the first games I actually saw that Rockstar took these NPC characters that maybe were a bartender or worked at the horseshoeing thing, and they gave them lives. And so as the time progressed, these NPCs would then walk back to their houses and live there and go to sleep and that sort of stuff. And then they would wake up, and then they would have, but they had full expansive lives that you could interrupt or you could watch and you could follow them. And I found that really interesting and fascinating. I'm sure it takes up a lot of system resources, and then it's a lot of programming, so that's why we don't see it. But I hope to see it a little bit more in the future, because I thought that was such a unique mechanic that I had never seen before.
Oh, it adds so much to the living world in the game. It's like, it's incredible.
Yeah, you feel that living world. When that shopkeeper's not there at midnight, sure, it would be nice, but no, that's not realistic. You know what I mean? So it's fascinating to watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Skyrim did it.
Of course. Well, that pretty much wraps up everything we have for this week. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast, please tell a friend. And on behalf of Matt Moulding, Matt Lord, and myself, Dan Whitetail, stay safe. And thanks for joining us as always. Good playing with you.
Good playing with you.
Happy New Year. Good playing with you.